Hi, Twig.
Hi, Irene.
Good to have you here.
I'm glad. Thanks for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
You are welcome. So, for those watching who might not know who you are, I'd like to introduce my lovely colleague and friend, Anthony Twig Wheeler. He goes by Twig.
I do.
Yeah. And we're here today to talk about a concept called neuroception. And it's a very big word. And please don't be scared of that word because we're going to break it down into really bite-sized, simple pieces, I hope. And just so that people know how we met, for those of you that know, I am a somatic experiencing practitioner as well as a Feldenkrais practitioner in British Columbia. And Twig here is also a somatic experiencing practitioner. And we met when I was in my training, actually, down in Carlsbad. You were assisting in our advanced level.
Carlsbad, California.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With
right.
Steve Hoskinson. So what I would love is for you, because I know a lot of your story actually, because you've presented it in a show. But for those that have never met you and don't know your history and your background, how did you get into this work? Why do you love it so much?
Thank you. Yeah, let's see. That's helpful because I did do a show
Mm-hmm.
where I did kind of a one-man show, they call it, like a single actor,
Mm-hmm.
where I told my autobiography, which is not exceptional, except that it's got a few turns in it that are interesting collectively,
Yes.
right? Like I had a kind of a rough beginning. A lot of people have rough beginnings, and we don't all need to kind of make a show out of that, like I did. So, but doing the show was because of a particular twist after I was diagnosed with complex PTSD.
And just for those watching, PTSD, post-traumatic stress. Do we say disorder now or syndrome?
Everybody's got their own little take on it. The way I think of it is kind of like can't sleep,
Yes.
ate a lot of cookies, smoked a lot of pot, hit a lot, didn't engage with a lot of people,
Yeah.
was easily startled, was kind of unnecessarily aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Great.
regularly anxious. You know, that's kind of what those four letters mean. PTSD kind of means stuff like that.
I'm glad you just did that because that
Yeah,
will that makes it a lot more real and understandable
right.
than an
Yeah.
acronym.
Mm. So I had kind of on the upper edge of that, not at all as extreme as it gets. Well, that might not be true. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's hard to judge. I was a wreck.
Yeah.
I was things were going the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And right around the time that everything in my life was truly falling apart, I discovered this fella and his work, Peter Levine,
Mm-hmm.
somatic experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
I had been trained as a body worker, went into that somatic experiencing training for kind of like a triad of reasons, three different reasons. One, slightly professional, slightly curious about like kind of adding that to my body work component, my body work. That was somewhat. A second piece was that I was deeply concerned with society and how the world is the way that it is, and kind of how it got to be quite so screwed up, and how I could feel so screwed up, and how my childhood could happen. I was really obsessed with what were the causal factors for that. So I had been looking at history for a long time, and I started to get very interested in the process of the nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
the human nervous system, in relationship to the development of civilization. So that was kind of like my theoretical and intellectual understanding of why I was attracted to somatic experiencing, was because it was attempting to explain what was going on in the nervous system for people who are distressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really distressed too, and I needed a lot of help. I didn't really know that that's what I was doing, but I was seeking help, and I got a lot out of it. I got a lot of help. And I got a lot of understanding about how it is that humans interact with one another the way they do, with as a response or a consequence of accumulated stress.
Yeah.
And I got really excited about the idea that other people could feel different and better too. So I started kind of looking for ways that I can approach the culture, approach people, and kind of take this idea that the nervous system has an intelligence behind it, that it's trying to help us feel better or self-regulate, and that if we can kind of come into contact with the right kind of signals and cues and experiences, this intelligence that is our organisms will be there ready to help us feel kind of like I think we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Which is not how I felt, right? I didn't feel good.
No.
And I look for ways to kind of like push that idea out of the therapy room. So sometimes I do funny street performance. Sometimes I get up on stage and tell my story of my weird childhood and my ultimate kind of thank goodness I found some help kind of stuff with somatic experiencing. And I also go around the world and just try and find ways to talk and engage with people about it. Even this conversation over the long thin wire is the same thing.
Exactly. I am curious. You mentioned that the body has the capacity to heal, that the nervous system, and I know this, and you said this actually in your show. I can't remember which one because I saw two of them, but that there's a whole lot of medicine inside of us, right? And that, and then, of course, you interpret that it depends on how we tap into the nervous system. And this piece that I wanted to speak to you today about this concept of neuroception, sometimes our body can't be medicine.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not drawing a blank right now, but I'm pausing and I'm going very slow with how I say this because sometimes we're just not ready to tap into that medicine. So could you speak to that? What we might do too is how would you define neuroception? Neuroception.
Right. Yeah. That's good for you to ask for that, for us to kind of like parse out a few things, because of course you and I swim in this kind of language, and the nervous system the body has all this kind of medicine. You know, a lot of people consider that their nervous system or their bodies are kind of the house of pain. And you know, it's like the last thing I wanted to do was feel my body in a sober state. You know, 15 years ago, I was avoiding that altogether as much as I could because I couldn't contact the sense of that medicine. What I felt was a whole lot of destruction, you know? Yeah. So it's good to kind of parse some of this out as we go toward that idea. Like, how do you contact it if it's good for you, but in fact, it feels like hell? So neuroception, that's a term that a fella, Stephan Porges, Dr. Stephan Porges, and I saw you have his book here.
Yeah.
And
I'll just show.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. There's
big, thick book of science, basically.
Real big, thick book of really complex science that has sweet spots in it, just that are just really sweet, really glorious, and far simpler than sometimes they are made to express. That's an element that's real science that's trying to deal with the fact that people have been understanding how the nervous system works from a scientific perspective for a long time. And we've had some pretty well-established ideas about how it works.
Yes.
That book mostly says those ideas are wrong. Right? Or at least that they're incomplete.
Yes.
right? Which is, okay, so that's
The
part
whole-
of the deal with
yeah.
science, is that it tries to increase our understanding and make things more simple by understanding more with less. What Stephan Porges has done with this thing called the polyvagal theory is that he has kind of refined our understanding of how the nervous system works inside of mammals,
Yes.
and that includes you and me as humans,
Yes.
and helped us to see that various different aspects of the nervous system have very specific functions that also control or dictate, or better said, they kind of limit our range of behavior based on which part of the nervous system is working.
Okay.
Okay, so it's to say this. Inside of us, we have a lot of stuff going on inside. You know, on the outside, we look very smooth and everything. Inside, it's really very complex and gooky. There's a lot of gook in there, and a lot of wires.
Yes.
And they go to specific places in the body, and they do specific kinds of things. Some of them make us move. Some of us help us breathe. Some of us pace our heart.
Digestion.
Some
all
of
that.
Digestion, temperature, all of these kind of things, particularly kinds of things that Stephan Porges is talking about, are the kinds of things that we don't have to think about in order to achieve.
Yes.
Right? Like heart rate, breath rate, temperature, digestion, things like, you know, you don't have to think about breathing and thank goodness for that, right? You just forget and, oh, I have to breathe, you know. The idea behind neuroception, or neuroception, is an idea that comes out of the fact that the autonomic nervous system, this involuntary part of us, has discrete functioning for different kinds of experiences. When we're sleeping or after we're eating, we do one kind of thing and our body works in one kind of way. When we're running after something that we want to eat, whether that's working really hard to achieve some, you know, money at the end of the day so we can kind of get our needs met, or it's kind of actually chasing an elephant or a zebra or a whatever out on the plains, like our body's organized very differently in that state than it is when we're resting.
Yes.
The assessment of what subsystem they call it, which part of the nervous system should be working, that assessment is made by this kind of process. It's kind of a metaphoric kind of thing, because it's a lot of different pieces of information being compared together to give us an assessment of which subsystem of the nervous system should my body be using right now.
Got it. So in other words, we have these automatic pieces of our nervous system, which governs digestion, heart rate, reproduction, immunity, all those pieces. And we need to be using the appropriate ones, the appropriate pathways, depending on whether or not we're jogging or needing to digest our food. We don't want our digestive processes to be on high when we're running, and vice versa.
You just named it exactly.
Okay.
Right. They have distinct responsibilities to help digest or to help you run, as two examples of many that are available. But those are two really good examples, because those are two distinctly different behaviors, and they have different what they call metabolic needs. Right. One has your heart going faster, one has your heart going slower. If you're jogging, you want your heart to be able to go faster. If your nervous system is turning on the part of you that makes your heart go slower, it makes jogging something like just suffering. It's just suffering, because you're just, oh,
Yeah.
and because you can't get up enough energy to do it.
Yeah. Not enough blood is going to the muscles.
Exactly. Not enough umph.
Fuel.
On the other hand, when I said earlier, like I didn't sleep. Here I go. My nervous system is it's time to go to sleep. Everything in the whole wide world would say you should go to sleep now.
Yeah.
You've been, I was climbing mountains and adventuring nonstop, just running, burning the candles at both ends, sometimes burning the whole candle at once, just throwing them in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then still at the end of the day, it'd be like
Wide awake.
wide awake and, just kind of finding all the imperfections on the ceiling. And it's like that system that said go down. It was time for that part to turn on and for me to quiet down. But the other part of my nervous system was staying up at an inappropriate time.
Okay. So let's explore that. Because that's the concept, from what I believe, of that you're sensing there's something still not right.
Mm.
Is that correct?
Mm.
There's danger even though you're in your home under the covers and there's this alertness.
Mm.
Correct?
Yeah. Correct. Yes. Now, what you did is just completely sensible, and it was kind of two steps. It added two steps of information that we could just add on the way to exactly what you just said. Mm-hmm. Neuroception is the process by which your nervous system, the nervous system, mm-hmm. perceives mm-hmm. your relative sense of safety or relative sense of danger.
Yes.
Based on that assessment, it tells which part of those subsystems of your nervous system, it tells which part of those should be working. Mm-hmm. If your neuroception says, everything's okay, mm-hmm. it's just fine right now, there's nothing coming at you, mm-hmm. there's no loud noises, you're not falling, mm-hmm. you're just resting, you've got a nice cup of tea, you can feel the warmth, everything inside says, hey, I feel okay.
Yep.
Everything on the outside doesn't give you any kind of stimulus that says you're in danger. Mm-hmm. Your neuroception is going to say, hey, right now I feel safe enough. And one of the wonderful benefits of that is that your nervous system naturally tunes toward a place where our bodies and our minds feel most relaxed and most at ease. Yeah. As mammals.
Right.
It's kind of like a set point.
It's where we want to be.
It's where we want to be able to get back to at least.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we want to be able to get back there. Now, if our neuroception says, hey, look, there's a soccer ball coming at you. You were having a good time here and everything was okay, but right now there's a soccer ball coming at you. Mm-hmm. That signal of danger immediately tells your nervous system, take over control from a different part of me, mm-hmm. and start trying to protect me to get me back to safety. Mm-hmm. And it tends to kind of have a couple different things that it can do. It can kind of flee from things, mm-hmm. right? And this part is the fleeing, but it can also fight with things. Yep. This part is the fighting.
Yep.
Right? I can drop a heavy rock outside when I'm carrying a heavy rock and I jump out of the way, mm-hmm. right? I can flee from it, or as it's falling, I can try to push it out of the way. Mm-hmm. It's fighting, right? I can engage with it, or I can try to remove myself from it. Mm-hmm. It just turns out if the nervous system or if the neuroception perceives that we're under mm-hmm. extreme threat, mm-hmm. that we just won't move at all. We'll just stop. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If we get the signal, if we get information coming through this neuroceptive process where mm-hmm. different things take place for that to happen, but if we get the assessment, I'm under life threat here, mm-hmm. then we'll tend to freeze. They call it freeze, immobilize. We stop moving.
Yeah.
We dissociate. We tend to dissociate. We tend to feel different kinds of things, and we tend to have a different, as we were saying before, different parts of the body work.
Mm-hmm.
The heart does a different thing when we're not moving than when we're running.
Of course.
Okay. In that way, there is this constant, consistent process, waking and sleeping all the time, where the nervous system is trying to have an accurate reading of how much threat we're under.
Yeah.
And its goal is to establish that we're under enough safety for that kind of set point or landing place to come about, which gives us actually, most interestingly, the freest amount of our attention and the freest amount of control over our behavior. As a threat increases or as danger increases, we become progressively less controlled in our behavior and progressively less capable of dictating what we're going to do.
Things become more reflexive.
More reflexive, more autonomous, more involuntary.
So that reminds me, when you were talking about how you were 15 years ago, aggressive, kind of, I forget the other words you used. But
it was kind of like I just had all three of those going on. I had fight, flight, and freeze, and they were all just kind of spinning around on each other.
Got it.
It tends to be what that is for people. Sometimes you're collapsed and sometimes you're manic, and then you go back to collapse and you go back to manic.
That's really important, because often when people hear this information, this theory that I teach as well, they kind of go, oh, so I'm either always on fight, flight, fighting, or a person is just frozen and not able to engage. But when you talk to people who are really suffering with these things, they will say that it's like a yo-yo.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. With everybody with their own timing.
Exactly.
Their own rhythm. Some people play walk the dog and they're down a long time before the yo-yo comes back up, and other people, I have to run, I have to be a runner, I have to jog every day. If I don't, then I might not get up for 3 days. So keep the energy high because I don't want to let it go down.
Don't want to drop.
Everybody's got their own timing.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so this, we'll just call it chaos, if you will, is essentially, if we make it a bit more simple, it's the nervous system not doing what it's supposed to for the current state. So, often people will say, I was fine just sitting there reading a book, and all of a sudden my heart rate just started to pound.
Right.
What's happening there? Like, what's actually going on in a person? Because there's no threat.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, that's in a way kind of entirely the story with, 15 years of my life being kind of spent running from something that I was no longer being chased by.
Right.
I kind of got away from my kind of the evil person who did such bad things to me. Mm-hmm. And then I still had that feeling, even sitting in a place, reading a book, and then I could just feel that kind of like something's wrong.
Yeah.
I wouldn't look back and say, oh, that's that feeling from 10 years ago.
No.
I would look for something that's in the environment or in the situation right now that kind of helps me explain why I feel this wrongness. And that is a very strong tendency that we have, that we call it a somatic sense, or kind of a felt sense of feeling, physical experience, a physiological experience happens. Our heart starts going faster when we go into the grocery store for it's like, it happens. And it is crazy making, and then you start looking for some reason to feel this way. The way I did it was I read human history, like a reason that I felt this bad, because I was reading about, all of the abuses that have taken place. And so I always had like a kind of a rationale for why I felt so much turmoil.
You had to make some meaning out of it.
Yeah, so I really kind of attach to the kind of the study of suffering, you know. And other people, they find their way to give some kind of explanation for this experience which you offered behind the scenes, behind our explanation of why I feel the way I feel. This is the notion. The nervous system has the responsibility of assessing, perceiving how much safety and how much danger I'm in. So it has to tell me I should get away from this bad situation as soon as I perceive it's bad and get back to safety so I can be at ease again. And in fact, have safe aware, like open awareness so that I could perceive something new rather than an over concentration on a danger that happens if I'm inside of that perceived danger. So I want to get away from the danger, back to safety. That's the plan.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. And the nervous system has this thing where it's assessing how's my balance. So it's getting vestibular action, right? It's kind of always judging, like, how's my balance? You don't have to think about that. It's just doing it. If you start to fall, you catch yourself long before you even were going to go toward the edge.
Yes.
Because it's starting to get a sense, I'm going too far. That sense, in that example, is as much from an internal signaling, the vestibular system, which is kind of in the inner ears and such. That's an internal sense.
Yes.
The soccer ball coming from an external source is signaling danger. Oh, this fast thing is coming toward me. That's a kind of another sensory signal that says I'm in danger. One's internal, one's external. They both inform my neuroception.
I see.
There are lots of ways that we can perceive danger from outside. We hear a loud sound. We see somebody's face looking at us really mean. We hear our mothers yell our full name.
Yeah.
First name, middle name, last name. We know we're in trouble. You know, we freeze and we don't want to do anything. Oh no.
What did I do?
You know? Right. We have ways that we perceive danger from the outside through the senses. We have the same kind of thing from inside. So, if our heart is going faster and there's no reason for our heart to go faster, our neuroception says, well, wait a second, then why is my heart going faster? There must be something wrong. Because my heart goes faster when something's wrong. If something starts going wrong and my heart starts going faster, it's all tied together. I'm neuroception, I'm in danger. If my heart starts going faster, it leads to the whole association of, oh, I'm in danger, my heart's going faster. Now, why would it go off? Why would it go faster?
This is what perplexes people.
Yes.
It's like, nothing's wrong, but there is something wrong.
It shouldn't go off. It shouldn't go off. It's especially in that story, it's so obviously inappropriate. And that's that business that fella Peter Levine kind of helped me and helped a lot of us get to. And so his thing that we're gonna like try to do in 20 seconds, and then you can follow it up in some other interview with somebody else or with me or whatever, is that when we perceive that initial I'm in danger, the nervous system doesn't just switch channels and say which system it should use now, run away, right? Get away from the soccer ball, as an example. It also tells us what to do.
The movement.
The instructions that go along with that movement. And those seem to be durable, meaning that they are tied to danger. They're inherently significant because of that. Danger is more interesting to your nervous system than safety. You want to get back to safety, but as long as there's a danger threatening you, you need to attend to that or you might get eaten by it. So, an instruction that is tied to your self-protection, it has a kind of an expectation for to be executed.
It must happen.
And if it must happen, or some variance of it, or it needs to be extinguished, it needs to be somehow deleted. If it gets created, because it's tied to the signal of danger, when some association to that goes off in the nervous system, the neuroception picks up the signal that says, I must be in danger. Here is that thing again. And so this is a shorthand metaphor. It's really incomplete. But if you try to print 10 pages in a printer that only has 6 pages of paper in it, it kind of screws everything up.
Yes.
You know, it prints the 6 pages and then everything stops, and it still wants to print those last 4 pages. And in a modern printer, and it's still looking for the opportunity to do that thing. And in our nervous system, that thing is tied to danger. So if those instructions linger, and there are various reasons why they do, and one of them is that the nervous system anticipates going through these kind of experiences, getting back to safety, and going through a process by which it extinguishes the rest of those instructions. In order to do that, the nervous system needs to get back to a neuroception of safety in order to complete that process. If the environment isn't actually signaling that kind of safety, then the nervous system actually becomes conditioned to kind of perceiving threat unnecessarily because it's still running threat responses internally that haven't been completed from past experiences.
Got it.
That is the notion. And that's the notion, that's the science, that's the theory. Somewhere out there, there's like a proof of it. And when I came to this, somebody sat me down, made it safe enough, or I sat down with somebody. They made it safe enough for me to contact some of those feelings, like my heart is going faster than it should be. Or my arms and my legs have more tension in them than they should have. That, I had a lot of tension. I went to the chiropractor at one time, like every single day of the week, and it hurt to go to the bathroom. I say that on stage because my ribs were so tight, there wasn't enough expansion for just my body to kind of open for that, It was very tight. And in kind of engaging with somatic experiencing as one path for doing this, I was able to feel that tension, importantly to say, at a safe enough level so that the rest of my nervous system didn't perceive all of the rest of the danger that it was accumulated with, which would have made me a berserker. Instead, we had kind of created the conditions where I could just feel it enough that I could feel it, but not trigger the rest of my nervous system to think that I was under an extreme threat. And then my arms and my legs, my heart would kind of do something. Involuntarily, my arms would rise in front of my face, as going back to the soccer ball, as if to protect myself from the soccer ball. And then after the completion of that, as if the feeling of needing to do that had passed, and as it passed, I would feel my body do all kinds of strange things. Usually my heart would flutter, let's just take that as an example, and it would kind of be erratic, clearly not something I was making happen. And then it would settle. And just like the nervous system theory would suggest, the part of my nervous system that is responsible for appreciating safety would start to work more and more. And I just start to be easier to be with people and easier to be myself and easier to feel myself. And this is not just me, this is just that the nervous system anticipates doing that. And the reason I wasn't feeling myself was that my nervous system had accumulated these instructions that every time it felt itself, it got a neuroceptive signal that said I was in danger. And that signal telling me I was in danger told me to act in response to a danger.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I would find some kind of danger, you know,
Yeah.
ride a motorcycle too fast or have a fight with my partner or whatever it was.
Yeah. Something to
Yeah,
get that going.
right. Hmm.
Cool. That was a great snippet to kind of explain this funny feeling, this tension, and then to just gently dip into it a little bit and experience it in a safe environment, in a safe container, which I think is so critical for people to understand, because when
Yeah.
you've had a past of multiple dangers or one big accident or something that was very threatening to your entire nervous system, you cannot find that medicine that we talked about
Yeah.
earlier until we feel a little bit of safety around us with the person we're with, if we're working with someone to work through this. And when that safety is sort of there, like a little blanket under you, it allows the expression, the as we call it, the completion, the actions to come out, the feelings to be felt. And then I like what you said about your heart started to flutter. So it's like it was trying to find that way down.
Mm.
And then finally it did, and it came down to rest.
Yeah,
Right.
it does that more and more. Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah.
And so the one thing is, if someone's watching this just quickly and say they've had a lifetime of horrific things happen, one question I know that comes up is, well, do I have to experience and go through every single event that's ever happened to me? And how would you answer that question if that's coming up right now?
Yeah.
When you,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. This is a beautiful thing about that book that we pointed at.
Mm-hmm.
And I said there are some real, I mean, there's some really sweet spots in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't address this question, but he addresses something that would be behind the kind of the deepest answer to this question,
Yes, please.
which is that neuroception, kind of like your best bet, is the most accurate neuroception you can have. Like that's like your best self-defense. You look at a dark alley and you feel immediately that doesn't feel good to me, and you don't go down there.
Right.
You know, right? You see danger and you feel the signal that says that would be dangerous to me appropriately, and you don't go there. And then you look at something else and you go, wait, that would be good for me, and you don't feel danger there.
Yes.
Or the anticipation that you feel there isn't overwhelming, accumulated with all the other danger. An appropriate neuroception gives you the opportunity to move toward things that are healthful for you,
Mm-hmm.
and away from things that are dangerous to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. An appropriate neuroception is grown. It's based on experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on having the opportunity to read a signal that tells you something's wrong, for you to act upon that signal, largely at the involuntary level, where your nervous system makes those instructions and says, hey, Troy, get away from this. And you're able to get away from it, and you're able to perceive that you've gotten away from it, and now you're able to perceive that you're safe enough, and your nervous system is able to make these changes into all those different subsystems. The more often you do that, the better your nervous system works when you come into contact with a new signal that says something is wrong.
So you've just upped the whole ante for dealing with anything in the future.
That's the whole point.
Got it.
From birth until death, the entire point is to make us, anything we've lived through is supposed to make us more resilient and more capable at assessing this is how wisdom comes, you know? It's like we're able to read the environment and respond appropriately to it. So here, you got this lifetime of like all these tragedies that have happened, and it's like it's really true. Some of us,
Mm-hmm.
it's like some people just it's like we never got a break,
Yeah.
and other people, it doesn't have to be like that. I just have a faulty neuroception. I never got the right signals that help me go through the entire thing that says I can really say what's safe and what's dangerous to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, could you go through all of those experiences, complete all those? I don't know if you could, and I don't think you'd want to.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
What's necessary is succeeding at getting through the stress response without getting stuck in it.
Yeah.
The more often that happens, the more the nervous system says, now I know what I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
In that way, all these therapies that are kind of like, especially somatic experiencing, that are really working on the small edge of things,
Mm-hmm.
are working toward kind of like, hey, let's make sure that we're going to be successful rather than fail.
Yeah.
So that we can do maybe a dozen successes with this kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Have it a little bit, let it dissipate, have it a little bit more, let it dissipate. Sometime in the future, when we have another feeling that we feel is got us, we will feel more capable of negotiating that feeling in the future.
Handling it. Okay.
That's how I think of our work, that we're trying to help ourselves, help other people negotiate the stress response better in the future. Whether that stress response is, I'm sitting here reading a book, nothing is wrong, and my heart is starting to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new stress response.
Yes.
It's informed by an old thing, but it's happening now.
Present.
How am I going to deal with it now? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a memory of something that happened in the past, but I have that memory tomorrow. It's a future challenge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I meet that challenge, how am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
The more I've successfully negotiated the stress response, even very little bits,
Tiny.
the more likely I'm going to handle that better tomorrow than I would have without having relearned that pattern.
Perfect. Prevention.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like backwards prevention. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
I think this is plenty.
Plenty.
Lots for people to think about, maybe watch again and re-listen.
I'll probably be thinking about it for days now.
Yeah. I like how we ended with this, knowing that it's really about what you do from time point now forward, and how to relearn and understand different ways to listen and feel and sense the body, and have it come down to this sort of baseline, this set point, so that we're not constantly afraid of what's around us.
Right. So that the neuroception isn't constantly going off in the wrong direction.
Inappropriate, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the application of those skills that you just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
being able to attend to ourselves differently from this point forward kind of thing, that's a learning process that, it took me a long time to figure that stuff out. And I got kind of like tormented by the fact that I wanted that now, that I knew I was supposed to go for that, and I didn't have it yet. And it's just nice because although that's torturous, our bodies are waiting for us to learn how to feel them appropriately and safely again.
Yes.
And once they get that, it all starts to work more and more intelligently, until I think I'll probably be doing some amount of management the rest of my life, but it is much, much less than the management that I would have had to have been doing without having kind of let my nervous system get more self-regulating.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Exactly. We'll do it again, I'm sure, at some point in the future.
Okay. Let's be in the same room next time.
That'd be cool, actually. Yeah. Deal.
Yeah. All right. Deal.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jake.
I'm there. Okay. You have a lovely evening, huh?
You too.